Hello, everybody, and welcome to the War Room for the new UFC 251 main event. I hope you watched the other one. We went to great effort to get that done and recorded and out. And right as we were about to upload, we heard rumours that the fight was off. But fortunately, 91% of you wanted to see the show anyway. So we've posted it and it's still there. I mean, if you're a martial artist, there's some good information in there, I would say. Right, let's talk about this one. Masvidal stepping in at 6 days notice, getting his coronavirus test and flying out to Abu Dhabi. Big respect to him. I mean, if he'd not already earned the name Gamebred, then he absolutely has now. One thing we also can't overlook, and this is, I've seen everybody overlooking this, Usman is taking Masvidal on at a week's notice to defend his belt. I mean, I know some managers that would advise against him. His manager may have even advised against it, but it's a dangerous fight. It's a different kind of opponent. It's a far more complex opponent than Gilbert Burns in a lot of ways. Firstly, because he doesn't really have any prior knowledge of Masvidal aside from what he's seen of him in the octagon. Gilbert Burns, obviously, he was a training partner, so there's been very little time since the last time they put hands on each other as friends and training partners. So that there was an understanding of what he was expecting there. There's also the knowledge of Gilbert Burns being an excellent jiu-jitsu player, very, very dangerous on the ground. His striking being quite wild and powerful, but fundamentally, it's quite basic, and that's not meant as an insult. They're swiping reactive punches. He's coming over the top, and he's landing with big power. Masvidal is a sharpshooter. You know, he's got all this kind of bravado and flair, like it doesn't matter, and it's it's easy, and he's just kind of reacting to whatever's in front of him, but he's not. He's planning, he's reading, he's watching. And it's always the fighters that make it look easy that you've got to watch out for. Masvidal just makes it look easy. I love watching Nate Diaz fight. Masvidal was in no danger in that fight. Even when he was getting punched, he knew he was getting punched. He was moving away as he was getting punched. He was riding the punches. And he was also fighting Nate, who's not really a puncher, if we're honest. Masvidal's managing. He's got The Rock sitting ringside. He's got, Donald Trump's watching, like the whole arena's filled with people. He wants to celebrate that moment. Like, he's not going in there to starch Nate Diaz to prove that he is the BMF. Proving you the BMF is doing it easily, which is exactly what he did. Like, I think it's in my Instagram stories in the highlights. I'm sitting like on the floor as Masvidal's walking out to that fight. I think I use Cypress Hill Latin Thugs or something. Like, you can just see his energy, his swagger as he's coming out. It's like, this is a payday. This is me entertaining. This is a theatre show for me. When you see him just do it as easily as that, and against Askren as well. I mean, you have to understand the stakes going into that fight. Askren is a massive trash talker. And if you lose to Askren, you're never going to hear the last of it. He's still on today. He's still giving Ariel Helwani shit online. That's who he is. It's fun. We love him for it. But you certainly don't want a loss on your record to that guy, because that's when it gets kind of bitter. Masvidal, in that moment, leaning up against the fence, doing his best Karolina Kowalkiewicz impression, blowing a kiss to the camera, pulls out the best knockout that we've ever seen in the UFC, in my opinion. And it's the best knockout because, A, he didn't get touched. Not at any point was he in any danger. B, if he'd have got it wrong, he was in a huge amount of danger. C, it was something that he planned. You can knock people out every day of the week, but it's the knockouts that you plan that show you're a great martial artist, because you know what you're doing. You're laying the foundations for the plan. You're setting the trap. I broke it down and inside the octagon. We could probably pull that and drop it in here. People just thought it was, he just threw a flying knee. He just knew Askren was going to level change, so he just threw a flying knee. It wasn't as simple as that. He knew Askren was going to level change. He also knew Askren was going to level change with his head towards his lead knee. But in order to make Askren level change in that direction, he needed to force him to level change in that direction, which is why he ran at a curve and then cut across Askren. It gave him the opportunity to put his head in the position that he wanted to put it in. And I mean, I had a conversation with Askren before he fought Damian Maia. And I mean, I was genuinely interested. I didn't want to salt in the wound and all that. But I said to him, did you watch the Masvidal fight back? Did you understand why the knockout had happened? And he went, he just threw a flying knee. Like that for me in that moment, I'm like, I wanted to give him the information because he'd been set up. A trap had been laid before he'd even stepped foot on the canvas. Like, you've got to know those things. You've got to spot those things. And that is a high level striker. You go back to Masvidal on the street fighting days, and he was fighting guys that were much bigger than him. He was taking on guys that are bare knuckle. If you get hit with bare knuckle, you cut to shreds. How much scar tissue does Masvidal have on his face? Not a lot. He makes it look so easy that we discount how easy it is, how difficult it is what he's doing. The open mat we did for BT Sport after the Darren Till fight, I broke that knockout down. And the reason that he caught Darren Till is because he was level changing, forcing Till to reach out. I mean, he'd read it, he'd set him up for it, and he punished him for it. Masvidal's been wanting to fight Usman for a while. You know, we saw the banter back and forth backstage when Usman was in a cast. And, you know, you very much got the feeling that if he wasn't in a cast, it would have happened then. This would be the rematch. Masvidal's paying attention to this division. He knows who the dangers are in this division. And I also feel like when he got in against Nate Diaz, I don't really think he prepared for Nate Diaz because I think he knew he had him beat. Against someone like Usman, he knows he has him beat if he approaches it the right way. He's also got much better wrestling, in my opinion, than Gilbert Burns. His submissions are nowhere near on par, of course, but Masvidal's not interested in submissions. If he's going to get the finish, it's going to be on the feet. If he's going to be on the feet, he's got to stop these takedowns coming. And Usman's going to do exactly what he would do to Burns. He's going to smother him up against the fence. He's going to beat him up at close range and try and drag him down and beat him up at close range. The one thing that's taken off the table to an extent for Usman now is that the submission threat's not quite there, which means that if he is on the floor, he can allow a bit more space because those scrambles are going to allow him to land more punches. And because he can continually replicate that takedown, beat you up as you stand up, take you down, beat you up as you stand up. I'm sure he can get a lot of confidence from the Damian Maia fight because obviously Maia was able to out-grapple Masvidal. But what he will realise watching that is that Masvidal doesn't ever give up. He doesn't ever quit. I think this is a much more difficult fight for Usman, especially without a training camp. I think the prior knowledge that he had of Gilbert Burns puts him in a very realistic position as to how he competes with Gilbert Burns. Against Masvidal, he's got this perception of what it's like to fight Masvidal based on nothing at all aside from sitting outside the octagon watching him. And I think when you get in there with a striker like Masvidal, a guy that's got, I mean, how many fights has Masvidal got on his record? And this is all that, and this is what, and this is, this is something that Masvidal, the record that Masvidal's got. You pull it up for me, Mystery. I've not got the page pulled up. Masvidal's had a lot of fights on his record, but they're the fights that have been recorded in MMA. I mean, he's had kickboxing fights and boxing fights and numerous street fights as well. And you get lots of opportunities to read and understand how people move when you do certain things. Masvidal's got a very, very deep arsenal of strikes. He's got a very deep arsenal of setups for those strikes. And for one strike, he's probably got 4 or 5 different setups. 48 fights. It's a huge amount of experience. Usman's, 11 strike? 11? Oh, yeah, I've got it here. I've got it written down. I don't know why I didn't look at my pad. Usman's 16-1. Masvidal's 35-13. So if you add Usman's wins to his loss, you get 17 fights. You double that, you got 34 fights. Masvidal's got more wins than Usman's got fights. And I always think that losses, which Masvidal's got 13, are more valuable than your victories because something went wrong, you have an opportunity to fix it. The amount of experience that Masvidal's got will show in the openings of this fight, and it will also force Usman to fight at the ranges that he's most comfortable. I think Masvidal's going to let this fight come to him. I think he's going to play. I think he's going to defend takedowns, and I think the only way it goes wrong is if he can't get space. If Usman is able to take him down and wear him out for the first 2 rounds, then this being taken on short notice is really where it starts to play against Masvidal. And this is why we have so much respect for him taking it, because Usman, yes, he's taking a short notice fight against a very dangerous opponent defending his belt. He's still had a full training camp though. He's still been working on his strengths. His game plan's not really going to change a great deal based on Gilbert Burns or Masvidal. Masvidal, we don't know whether he's been in training camp. We know he's training all year round. We also know he used to be a lightweight, so he's not going to be struggling to cut weight quite as much as he would if it was a short notice lightweight fight. But we just don't know where he's at. I mean, you know, I know he's grown his hair and his beard out, but I don't know what his conditioning is like. I don't know what his timing's like. I don't know any of these kind of things. That's all down to Masvidal, and we won't know these things until the fight starts. But I mean, when you lose a fight like Usman Burns and it gets replaced with Usman Masvidal, you feel like someone's smiling down upon you. So thank you for everyone that made this fight come about. I'm sorry that Gilbert Burns is not going to get this opportunity, and I hope he does. But Masvidal, big respect for stepping up. I mean, you're a hell of a dog. And Usman, good luck, man. It's a hell of a test at a week's notice. No doubt you can do it, but for sure it's a challenge, and we can't underestimate the courage that it would take for someone like Usman to put everything on the line at this short notice. Enjoy this fight, Fight Island. See you next time.